Hello and welcome to the Student Employment Town Hall. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to attend. My name is Bridget Schwartz and I am the Director for Student Employment. This is my 14th year in student employment at GW, and I'm super excited that we're still making changes and improvements that will better the student and employer experience. All right, so today we will be discussing a quick overview of student employment. We will chat about what's new for the 24-25 academic year. And since we have a wide range of experience with us today, we will walk through the full student hiring process. And we will touch on some of the goals and initiatives that we have for this year. And of course, we should have plenty of time for question, answer, feedback, and discussion. All right, so let's start with a quick overview of student employment. The student employment team is responsible for managing and administering the recruiting, hiring, and onboarding of over 4,000 hourly paid student staff at GW each year. Additionally, we operate the on and off campus federal work study programs, ensure employee data integrity, provide excellent customer engagement. We hope you think so anyways, and design strategic programs that align with regulatory requirements and the development of student employees and hiring departments. The student employment team is comprised of 4 full-time staff and 4 student staff. Emily Santos is responsible for our recruiting and onboarding. She's also the newest member of our team. Alia Rakabi Zain oversees our hiring, finance, and terminations. Bashar Fakhri heads up the training and resource development, as well as our special programs like National Student Employment Week. As a team, our values of inclusivity, transparency, efficiency, and ethical practice guide our work and our projects. So let's chat about some of our numbers. Between July 1st, 2023 and May 31st, 2024, our small team reviewed over 1,400 job postings. Over 4,600 hiring proposals were reviewed, offers sent, and onboarding started. We completed almost 2,000 student I-9s, and we have surely probably broken that 2,000 mark by now. And we processed nearly 5,900 hires and position adjustments in Banner. We like to say some of our non-student customers or our friends. We have over 400 hiring managers, 207 hiring departments, 270 hiring departments, 630 plus supervisors, and 13 off-campus federal work study partners. This year, we had a record-breaking year in the number of positions held by month. On the left chart, on the top line, you will see this year's hiring positions held by month. The green line is fiscal 23, and the blue line is fiscal 22. So we definitely broke all kinds of records this year. The second chart shows the number of new employees added by month this year. So this means each one of these employees had a hiring proposal process. So that we had data entered and Banner I-9s completed, etc. Our peak times are very clearly July through September, January, and then again in April for commencement hires. So if we're a little slower to respond to emails or do not answer your calls right away starting in July, you definitely know why. We promise to return those phone calls as soon as we can. All right, a little data about our students. About 19% of our student employees are international students, leaving 81% to be domestic students. Proportionally, our international student employee population trends a bit higher than the university average, as reported in IPEDS. And lastly, 86% of our positions are non-federal work study, leaving the remaining to be federal work study. Before we wrap up the student employment overview section, I did want to point out some of our guiding documents and resources. We will share this presentation afterwards, so you can click through the links. If you're watching this recording, the presentation will be linked in the video description. In the fall of 2018, we implemented the student employee classification and wage matrix, which still guides our position titles and pay for student employees. This year, we also instituted the recruitment procedures and requirements, which we'll discuss a little bit later in the presentation. We also have user guides for hiring managers and students and a ton of resources on our websites. With such a small team and a large volume of hires and emails and phone calls, we really do depend on departments using these resources because unfortunately we don't have the bandwidth to individually guide hiring managers through the process each time. So what's new? Frankly, a whole lot more than we had planned, but that's what you get for asking, can this happen? But we think some of these changes will definitely be game changers. So, first up is compensation. As has been standard for the last few years, minimum wage will increase on July 1st to $17.50 an hour. So the wage matrix has been updated with these new ranges, and they are already reflected in People Admin in the position standards and classifications document. Next, on the hiring proposal side, we have a new workflow that we'll go over later, but these changes eliminate extra work for hiring managers and students, provide an easier way to track the completion of hires, allow for more accurate notifications to students and hiring managers when the hires are complete, and internally, a way for student employment to sort and complete hires in a more efficient and effective way. On the hiring proposals, we also have added a required question for hiring managers to complete of where would the student perform their work. As it sounds, we just need to identify the location where the student will be performing their work. If it's on campus, we just need the campus location, like the student center. If it's remote, we're looking for the state where the student will be located. If it's a hybrid position, provide the location where the student will perform more than 50% of their work. And that's all in the help text for the new question. On the job application, so the application the student is completing, we have removed the two location-based questions from the student's application because we found that students just don't update them correctly, and it's super old data by the time we get it, or that the question was needed during COVID and the remote learning period. We did add a required question on the application. This one is one of the most common supplemental questions that that is usually added to the job posting. So we have asked the student to state their degree level on the application, and then the options are undergraduate, graduate master's, graduate doctorate, law, medicine certificate, and other. All right, moving on to the job posting form. We have removed the character limit on the position-specific summary to allow departments to have a more robust job posting and to eliminate the need for an external source to capture all of the job duties and expectations. I will caveat that with that students are not going to read a 3-page job description, so just keep that in mind as you are building out your job descriptions. There are 3 new required questions that have been added to the posting form, which align with the student employment recruitment procedures and requirements. And in general, these changes help to ensure that job opportunities are available to a diverse student population and follow best recruiting practices. So the first question is, if this will be a waiver of posting, please explain why you are requesting an exception to an open recruiting. So the acceptable options that are listed are the student has worked for the specific department within the last year. The position is a promotion within the same department. The student needs to be transferred from a federal work study to non-federal work study in the same position. But we hope you're not using hiring proposals for this and that you're using the dual hire type or the form on employee records. We did add that question in as an option. If it's an internal department search, for this option, we are asking departments to attach a document indicating how the internal posting will be distributed to all students who satisfy that selection criteria. And the last option is that you're hiring from a different or previous existing applicant pool within the same academic year. So usually that means that you've had the same or similar position and you would like to transfer applicants from one posting to another. The second question is, if you're requesting that the position only be available to graduate students, you select which of the following apply. The position requires a student employee to have a high-level access to sensitive student or employee information. There would be a conflict of interest to have an undergraduate student perform the duties. The position requires the student to assist a faculty member in a graduate level class, or the student must have taken a graduate level course to be employed in the position. Or the position requires the employee to have necessary experience to conduct the duties that are reasonably considered to align with expertise only a graduate student would have. And that would definitely not include any positions in an entry-level position like the Student Support 1 positions. And the last question is, if you're requesting that the position require a specific GPA or academic standing, to please indicate which of the following criteria apply. That the student will be performing a tutoring service as part of their job. The student will coach other students on academic or student success, or the student will serve as an academic assistant for a course and must have received a particular grade in the course in which they're supporting. All of these questions are required. There is a not applicable option for all of the questions. However, if you put not applicable and like you're requesting that it only be for graduate students, we'll send it back and ask you to select one of the other criteria. All right. So the last area is not completely new, but we are definitely cleaning up supplemental questions to better fit department needs. We currently have well over 200 supplemental questions that departments have added in this system, make it incredibly difficult to find the one that you need. And thus we just see the supplemental questions continue to be added upon because people don't want to search for a good question. So we are cleaning this up to identify questions that would best identify successful applicants at the application stage and categorize them better. Supplemental questions are an incredibly powerful tool that can be used to ensure that you're receiving applications that match the skills and qualifications you're looking for in a new team member. There are options to disqualify a candidate based on the answer selections automatically, or we call knockout questions. We have heard from many hiring managers that they're getting very large applicant pools to their live postings very quickly, whose skills and experiences do not fit the job requirements. So supplemental questions are the best way to quickly determine who would be a good job candidate. If your department has specific questions or requests, please send them to Student Employment so that we can start a category for your school or division that would include your specific hiring needs. We most recently did this for the School of Business, who have positions that have a lot of necessary questions that need to be answered by the student. And we've started a category just for them so that they can quickly find all of their unique questions that they need to add to the job postings. All right, so while Student Employment can definitely not take credit for the TRS upgrades, we do want to mention a few of the major benefits that are coming soon. I think I saw Glenna Bennett from Payroll on this. So definitely hats off to our colleagues in Payroll and a massive congratulations for these improvements to the system. So some of the benefits are that secondary employees will now be visible in the TRS system before clocking in for the first time. Non-exempt employees, including student employees, can now record missed punches themselves. The system will no longer round punches to the nearest quarter hour, which is going to be a great benefit for international student employees who have strict hour limits. And managers and timekeepers can monitor federal work study balances. It's not a live calculation. The amount that will be shown will be the amount as of the last pay date, so you'll still need to track, but we think this is an incredible addition to the TRS system. If you're timekeeper and you haven't already done so, please, I encourage you to attend training. Great new system improvements, but it does look and feel very different. So definitely go through training. All right. So now we will move on to the recruiting and hiring process. Just a quick walkthrough. The very first step is going to be always to post your position. So please just keep in mind the new standards around when a posting can be internal or the waiver of posting. To post a position, the hiring manager submits a posting to student employment, at which time we review it to make sure the job description matches the job title and level, and the wage is appropriate and the position meets all of the new recruitment standards. From there, it will either be posted live for a later date, or be posted internally, and you will be provided a link to share with the applicants. We frequently do need to return postings to hiring managers for edits, so please watch your emails and the yellow highlighted comments in those emails to address anything that needs to be edited. We do monitor live postings to ensure that applicant pools do not become overly large, and we allow for 30 applicants for one opening and 10 additional applicants for every opening after that. So for example, if you had 3 openings for that one position, we would allow 50 applicants for the posting. We will close the posting once the pool is maxed out, unless the applications are dispositioned in advance. All right, so hiring managers and supervisors are fully responsible for the applicant review process. We do have resources on our website regarding questions you can ask and what you cannot ask during an interview. And anyone who is part of the interview process should definitely take the EEO training on talent at GW. One of the biggest issues we hear from students is that they applied for positions weeks or months ago and have never heard back. While this might be standard practice in the regular job market, it is definitely not best practice. And students rely on their student jobs to support themselves while in school. We see a lot of anxiety and stress from students who are unable to find a position. So we do have a disposition monitoring process. Before I describe the process, I'll caveat this by saying this is our current process, but we're currently examining our workloads internally, and may need to move to an automatic process in the system that would automatically disposition after an application was in review by hiring manager state after 20 days. So currently what we do is we run a weekly report identifying postings that have closed at least 2 weeks prior, and the position has applications in the status of review by hiring manager. Student employment then emails hiring managers on the posting with a warning that applications will be closed if not dispositioned in an additional 2 weeks. At the 4-week plus point, student employment transitions the applications in the review by hiring manager status to department did not disposition status, and the student receives notification. Please note you can use the interviewed status if you are interested in further exploring candidates fit with a position, but you need more time to review applications. If you have candidates who are backups that you would still consider hiring them, but so you just kind of want to back up in case your first candidates do not accept, you can move them to the runner-up status, but be sure to communicate that status with them. Otherwise, it's important that students know to continue their job search if they will not be selected for interview or hire. Okay, now the fun really begins with the new hiring proposal workflow. Before we dig into that process, let's quickly chat about what's included in the change. First up, the position acknowledgement form and duplicate hiring manager notifications are eliminated. New hiring managers and rehires will no longer have to complete a position acknowledgement form in employee records, and hiring managers will no longer have to sign off on the hire completion. The student and the hiring manager will just simply receive an email when the hire is fully complete and the student can begin working. And we are probably as happy about it as you are. The second change is that notifications will all be coming from our applicant tracking system and people admin, which will allow for a more robust and specified message. This means hiring managers from other positions will not receive notifications when the student is hired into a secondary position. This will also allow us to add information from the hiring proposal to the email notifications, like the student's position number, department organization number, timekeeper, supervisor contact information, etc. The full hire will now be tracked directly in the applicant tracking system. So hiring managers will no longer have to track the completion of the hire based on the onboarding checklists, which we knew was super confusing. I'm sorry. Student employment will now be able to sort hiring proposals and process hires based on when they were placed in the workflow to allow for more timely completion of hire. This sounds crazy, like how could you not have done that before? But employee records did not allow us to sort our workflows by when the hire was put in our status. So there were times where we would have 250 plus hires waiting for our completion, but we had no way to identify which ones came first. With all good things, there is a price to pay. So for these process improvements to take place, people admin did have to set up a deadline for hiring proposals so that unhired applicants would not keep employee access in the system in perpetuity. So hiring proposals that have not reached the hired status within 60 days will be canceled and must be resubmitted. This is important to keep in mind if you typically submit hiring proposals much in advance of the start date, particularly if the student will not be on campus during the time between the submission of the hiring proposal and the start of the position, and the students need to complete an I-9 and they might not be in the area to do so. You will also see us having to cancel more hiring proposals that have been in the pending offer letter, background check, and I-9 statuses more frequently due to the 60-day deadline. So if we want to move to the workflow, the workflow is color-coded to reflect who's responsible for the item. Student employment is in yellow, the finance director and HR is in brown, and then the students are in green. So let's just chat through this real quick. First, the hiring manager submits the hiring proposal to student employment, at which time we review the hiring proposal to make sure the wage is correct, that they are indeed a student, and if it's a federal work study position, that the student has federal work study. At this time, if the department requires a finance director approval, it is moved to the finance director to approve. And once they do so, it sits in a status of pending offer letter until we send that offer letter to the student, at which time the status is changed to offer letter sent. And then it waits for the student to sign the offer letter. After they do that, and if a background check is required, we move the background check to Human Resources to start that background check process. If the student does not accept the invitation, the hiring proposal will be canceled. Otherwise, the status will be changed to background check in progress once the student accepts the invitation. And then from there, the status options are background check passed, in which there's two next options, or there's background check not passed and the hire proposal is canceled. If the student has never worked for GW before, we don't have an I-9 on file, or the I-9 has expired, we will then assign onboarding tasks to the student and employee records, including the I-9 instructions. It will stay in the pending I-9 status until the student completes their I-9. From there, it will move to pending banner entry, where our hiring team will move all of the data from the hiring proposal into banner, and the student becomes an employee of the university. After that occurs, the status will be changed to hired. These statuses that you see on this workflow and that you will have access to are the actual statuses in the system. The workflow, the hire proposal tracker spreadsheet that we have on our resources have also been updated with these new statuses. And like I mentioned, all of the statuses are 100% trackable through the applicant tracking system. A few notes about the process. The changes went live into the system on last Friday, on June 21st. And when the changes were made, any student who was in that final hiring proposal state, which was previously titled onboarding started, ATS automatically retitled to hired, which can be a little confusing, and we'll have to work through getting all of these older hiring proposals out of the system. But if you had a hire that had been moved to onboarding before last Friday, please continue to track it in employee records. You'll still get the notices through employee records, but we didn't want to restart the hiring process for anyone who was not already hired. Also, the student will show up in the TRS system the day after the hire is complete. We also instituted last year with the Title IX office a required Title IX training for the student, which will be listed in their onboarding tasks. This is required for all student employees. And since it's a required training, it must be paid. So we ask the student and supervisors to please add this into their onboarding schedule for their first days on their position. And the last great date that is hot off the presses, I just found out about yesterday, so it's not represented on the slide. Our background check policy previously required students to have a background check every year. That policy has been revised and is a process of getting up on a website, and now aligns with the faculty and student timeline, which is every 5 years. So it's very likely that a student will only have to complete one background check with the university. What that means in the workflow is that we will still send it to HR to verify that there is a background check on file, but it should move through the process really, really quickly. All right. All right, before I open it up to questions or feedback, comments, I would like to just briefly discuss what's next for us. Most immediately, we will be hosting webinars for Federal Work Study, first-year students and international students, to give them the tools that they need to be successful when applying to positions. On July 15th, Federal Work Study postings will go live. So you can actually, I know the date was July 1st, but you can actually start submitting your Federal Work Study postings now. We got the Federal Work Study index number much sooner than we expected, and the system has been updated with that. We will also start focusing on developing support for supervisors, recognizing that much of our previous resource focused on hiring manager and student support. We will develop a 3-part training series on the first days on the job, employee development, and performance management and offboarding. And then looking into 2025, we really hope to expand on developing supervisors as partners in the student employee professional growth. So that takes us through to 2025. Always there are new things that come up, and we will adjust to that for sure. But that is what's on the books for right now.